And welcome back. Time for our discussion on Monday Special. A fierce battle is on in Uasin Gishu County that is threatening to split the six-piece Jubilee Party support in the polls. Uasin Gishu is divided along various clan and ethnic lines in a contest that is reaching fever pitch. Already, the county commissioner has put politicians on notice for hate speech, with Bichachi saying that those who have broken the electoral code of conduct should not be allowed to vie. But why is the ethnic card being played out in an area that should have seen homogeneous support for Jubilee? Well, Uasin Gishu is a cosmopolitan area, and other than the indigenous Kalenjin community, significant numbers of other communities are also found in the diverse county. The Kikuyu, Luya, Luo and Kisi communities reside in this vote-rich county and make up more than a third of the residents there. They are therefore a constituency that may be seen as a significant swing vote. The county also saw some of the worst electoral violence in the 2007 election and has been one of the counties that has been listed as a hot spot by the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. But that is not the only issue. There is, of course, clan politics that has played out in the region between the Nandi and the Keyo. Jubilee leaders have urged candidates not to split the Kalenjin vote there. Already, Governor Mandago has warned Jubilee leaders not to bank on that vote if they are not going to support him. Listen to what he had to say.
Sema mwerefu mjinga akierefuka mwerefu yuko mashakani. Hata sisi kura yetu tumerefuka, na vile Sudi anasema hatutaki mchezo, tutaweka agents kila mahali. Kura 100 ikienda kwa nini? Hata hiyo ingine taangia raia mwini hata mkujui na saa moja bila enda. Kwani ni lazima tukuwe na serikali?
Well, since then, the governor has backtracked, saying that he supports the deputy president. He was invited to this program and had earlier agreed, but later declined to come. Now, joining us now in studio are analysts on this topic. Next to me is Josiah Magut. He's a former Eldoret mayor. And next to him is Mark Bichachi and Dunstan Omari, who are both political analysts. And the man with a horse in this particular race is independent Uasin Gishu gubernatorial candidate Bundo Kiprop, also known as Bichachi, and he would be the supposed horse, I suppose, in our discussion. And gentlemen, you're all welcome to the program. Dunstan, I want to begin with you. Why is Uasin Gishu and this race so important both for Jubilee and for NASA?
That county is the county of the deputy president. That county is the county that was the cradle of the post-election violence. That county is a basket in terms of food for this republic. That county is the county that controls the Rift Valley politics. Therefore, that county is not just a simple county that people look at it in that manner. So therefore, whoever controls the politics of Uasin Gishu controls the pulse of Rift Valley. Remember, there are more than 4 million votes in the Rift Valley, and if Eldoret sneezes, then the whole of Rift Valley is sneezing. If Eldoret laughs, then the whole of Rift Valley is laughing. So I think that the good governor here and Mandago are rehearsing for the battle of the Titans.
All right. Josiah, this is a race that in some ways is complicated by the cosmopolitan nature of the county. Break that down for us.
Now, Eldoret is a cosmopolitan county. By the fact that many people from other counties live, do business and own properties in Eldoret town. Now, when campaigns come, sometimes it is not even the public who throw the division. It is the candidates who sometimes throw agitations that make the public think otherwise.
All right. What's your opinion, Mark?
The reality about Uasin Gishu County, if you look at the history of election violence right from 1992 up to 2007, you realize that Uasin Gishu County is a powder keg. Why? Because of its cosmopolitan nature, and two, because of its importance strategically in terms of transportation of goods and its importance to the communities that are around there, the Kisi, the Luya, and the Luo, and the Kalenjin as well. So the statements being made right now are very critical because they set the tone for how this election is going to be. Let's not forget that if Kenya is going to catch fire, then the matchstick has to be around that area. That's how it works. So it's a race we have to watch very keenly. The candidates have to be very careful with the words, and we have to also be sure that this is going to be an indicator of how people are going to vote in 2022 as well.
That sounds like a very harsh assessment of the county, to say that it would be the matchstick. Some may go as far as feeling insulted by that sort of opinion. Bichachi, because you are in this race, what do you think about that? There are concerns around this race being one that would be peaceful and equally credible.
Sure, I think the statement from my friend here has been over-amplified. Uasin Gishu is very peaceful, as it is now, and obviously we are very optimistic that it will be the same moving forward in the future. But as it happens in politics, at times people get a little bit too desperate when you want to cling to power. And it does not surprise me very much when somebody does not have substantive agendas that are development by nature to sell to the electorate. And once you realize that you are losing your popularity, then in some cases, people go to extreme ends where they have to intimidate voters or make pronouncements that would obviously elevate their ego, but in the process become very narrow in the manner at which they do that, and then the issue of the matchstick that my friend has just said here could be an issue that could come into discussion. But as it is now, I don't think we are anywhere near a matchstick. But obviously we need to observe a lot of restraint and be very cautious moving forward. Right,
and NCIC has already put politicians in the area of notice, saying that some arrests could be made regarding hate speech. You are on record saying that those who do not adhere by the Electoral Code of Conduct should actually not be allowed to take part in the race. Who specifically were you referring to?
I think we have three people in mind, and I call them at times the three musketeers. We have one who is an alien who comes, ravaging in our county, one called Alfred Keter. He is a guy from Nandi Hills. But I think he has no business in Nandi Hills and spends most of his time in Eldoret. And he's the guy who's been fueling this ethnic rhetoric. Another person is called Oscar Sudi, who is somebody who's been on record numerously on a lot of issues that border on criminality. And what he did, or what he said on the Friday they had a road show, and he is somebody who has publicly said he runs the show on behalf of, he has said on behalf of Jackson Mandago. Himself said, anybody who is going to vote for Buzeki, the first 100 votes that we will count and realize that they have voted for Buzeki, then we will also make a decision to advise our voters to vote otherwise. Mandago himself decided to take a cue from his henchman, and he just emphasized and rubbed it in that yes, if we realize, he said, and you can replay that clip, he said what Oscar Sudi has said, I also repeat the same. In the event that we realize that people are voting for Buzeki, then we will also decide. In fact, he went further to say we don't have to be in government anyway. That's what he said. What does that tell you? These guys are propagating hate speech. If there is a body that is independent in Kenya called NCIC and IBC, we should not be talking about them planning to do arrests. If anything, they are the sole people that we are going to blame for anything wrong that may happen. But leave alone in Uasin Gishu, but in Kenya, where there are these kinds of pronouncements.
But in as far as what you've said about the Alfred Keter, the legislator, well, those are allegations that are yet to be investigated and to be proven true or false. Dunstan, why do you think NCIC in some ways maybe issuing warning shots than doing the real thing?
And the Kaparo-led organization is an entity that has no business existing in this country. They cannot convict, they cannot investigate, they cannot bring any credible allegations to court. Therefore, they are only but making noise. The only thing that I want to agree with Buseki and my other colleagues is one, that the Kalenjin nation is learning new things other communities have been facing for many years. For 24 years, from 1978 to the year 2002, they never knew anything called democracy. They never knew anything called internal competition. Then come 2013, they were shepherded together because of the William Ruto factor to one basket. This time they have no reason to be in one basket. They are now enjoying the freedom of making noise, and that is what Buseki and Mandagol and Oscar Sudi are exercising. The only danger is that they have no experience on how to do this. They might cause what he calls a matchbox theory, and there might be a spark that will injure non-Kalenjins who are in Eldoret. What I do see is that, according to Mandago, he seems to be appealing to the indigenous Nandis. Buseki, my good friend here, comes from the KU. If you look at those politics, according to Mandago, Buseki, Sholei, and Chepkonga and the others, all the KUs are not indigenous people for that area. That's a very dangerous talk. It's a very dangerous talk for anybody who was above 18 years and who saw what happened in 2007. I would be asking for restraint from the two people. And the question I have asked my good friend, what are they fighting for? Are they fighting for the properties of Kenyans that they have taken? What is this that they are really fighting for?
All right, Mark, you've been an area leader. What is your perspective? Sir?
Look, Eldoret is cosmopolitan. What we have now between Mandago and Buseki, for us, these are indigenous people. Buseki and Mandago are indigenous people. The trick which is there now is the swing vote which exists within Uasin Gishu, whereby our current governor Mandago thinks that if they share equally the indigenous vote, the swing vote will be from the people from diaspora. And this is the Kisi, the Kikuyu, and everybody else. The mistake that he's making is now venturing into a situation where he is threatening. And you see, some of us have been in politics for quite a long time. And what I did while I was the mayor of Eldoret, I embraced everybody. And this is where we brought peace, because everybody has a stake. A Kisi who is doing business, who owns property, who is making his living out of Eldoret, should have no fear at all that elections are coming. And we have had this from the president and the deputy president from their own political aspirations. They have said, never again should we shed blood because of politics.
Right, and I beg your pardon, Josiah. Mark, let me come to you now. Is it a bit? Is it strange to you that in an area where the principal to the Jubilee 2 ran with the pledge to unite the country, that we're still talking about supposed tensions flaring up? Or is it such a harsh indictment on the administration to believe that in 4.5 years they would have been able to bring all communities, not just in Uasin Gishu, of course, but across the country together?
You know, one of the key things about Kenya in general is when we discuss peace, we never discuss the process of peace, and this is where we miss the plot. You see, peace is a process. Peace is not the joining together of certain politicians and saying, now we've created peace because the two of us have joined. There is no process in terms of inculcating a culture within Jubilee as a party as to what your candidates can and can't say. That's number one. Number two, what is the process that the country has committed to towards eradicating such statements and such vices within people? There are two things about conflict that people need to understand. You need two things. Number one, they say that the army marches on its stomach, so that's an economic question. The other part is that you got to inflame passions. Now the problem with passions is that they're illogical. They're illogical in the sense that how are you going to say that certain members who've lived within Uasin Gishu for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years of their lives are no longer irrelevant on a poll? Why? Because their economy, what they do, contributes to the economy of that place. But the problem with Kenyan politics is that every time we feel threatened, as Buzeki has said, every time we feel threatened, then we play the tribal card. We play this is our people. We play this is our community. Now, if the government and indeed Jubilee is serious about this, then what they need to do is, as a party, their internal discipline mechanisms within a party, that if one breaks the ethical laws of a party, they can call them and sanction them based on that statement. And that's what needs to happen if indeed the president and his deputy are committed to peace in this country. That's what they need to do.
All right, Buzeki, your take.
Just give me a right of reply.
Please go ahead.
From what my friend seated nearest to me here said, that what is it that me and Mandago are fighting for? Is it what we've acquired? Let me just put it on record that I've never worked in the public service. And in politics, probably I am hardly 6 months old, so I'm learning the ropes, but pretty fast. But let me say this. The transformative agenda that Uasin Gishu, the Uasin Gishu County constituents hoped to have gotten in the wake of devolution has become a stillbirth. And then there is this person who came with a fresh breath of ideas and energy, who is Buzeki, and all of a sudden guys are opening up their minds and saying, hey guys, this is the guy who's gonna change our lives. The person who is my incumbent, my very formidable competitor, I don't think focused to provide good leadership for the people of Uasin Gishu. He focused on becoming a political kingpin. Now, his quest to be a political kingpin is starting to crumble, and crumbling very fast. And this is making him very desperate. And that is why he tried to retreat to the very sub-ethnic cocoon, leave alone the other ethnic groups like the Kisi, the Luo, the Kikuyu. Leave alone that. That is not where this ethnicity in Uasin Gishu started when I ventured into politics. He started by sub-ethnic clans trying to profile the issues that my friend was mentioning, and Andy and Akeju. Let me tell you one thing. There is no difference, and you can never differentiate the people from Uasin Gishu because we come from one umbilical cord, and that is cultural for so many years. But in his quest to get a channel that he can be able to anchor himself as a political kingpin, he tried to separate me from the other sub-Kalenjin tribes to make me an alien. But in the process, that did not materialize. Now, he's at a loss as what to do now, because it's very apparent that the reality is dawning on him that on the 8th of August, the game changer for Uasin Gishu.
And I must again say on record that we invited the incumbent to come on the program. He declined to come. Be that as it may, those are allegations that you are leveling against him, and we know NCIC is following up generally on what leaders in this area have been saying. But let's not talk about him, let's talk about you. Now that there is this constituency, the 1/3 of other communities who are resident in Uasin Gishu who have a stake in its politics equally, what is your message?
I think first and foremost, as a very responsible leader, and as somebody who has the national picture of Kenya and the global political platform, I think it would be very unwise for somebody to try and profile a certain segment of a community and say that you either toe the line with my conditions, and or rather you toe the line, or then you are not part of us. You know, I think you cannot give conditionalities to people who call their home Uasin Gishu, for anybody for that matter. So I want to tell the people of Uasin Gishu that I believe in a united Uasin Gishu, an inclusive Uasin Gishu, and because that would be the basis for us to be able to drive the development agenda for Uasin Gishu to prosperity. When we have everybody and the social fabric that brings all of us together is strong and neatly kept. That is a philosophy that I strongly believe in. It's a fundamental that is anchored on my campaigns moving forward, and I want to assure the people of Uasin Gishu that for anything else, if there is one thing I'll assure Kenyans and the people of Uasin Gishu, is I will work towards bringing the people of Uasin Gishu together. Because
would you say that it is impossible to have a conversation on development in Uasin Gishu County without having a conversation on cohesion first?
Yes and no. I think from the past of where we've come from, I think it would be important to in as much as I would not want us to be held by the back, but it's always good at times to just glimpse, you know, once in a while, because that makes us to look further ahead. So we cannot forget what happened previously. So for that matter, we need to ensure that we continue talking cohesion issues and healing the wounds that by now I've really healed, and we're in the process of overcoming the challenges that we had. But obviously, for me as governor, to be able to effectively deliver and implement my manifesto, I would need everybody to read from the same script so that I can marshal all the energies of the people of Uasin Gishu to be able to drive in one direction. So for that reason, I would need to ensure that everybody is working with me.
Josiah, what would you say the priorities of the county are?
Priorities of the county are, one, to bring unity to the people of the county, to improve the livelihood of the people of the county, the people of the county to enjoy the fruits of devolution, such that they are involved in all development issues, they chart their way, they make their decision on issues of development, and generally making the welfare of the people of Uasin Gishu better than it has been.
All right. Mark, given that this is a cosmopolitan region, the breadbasket, we're having all these challenges, even with just agriculture and getting it, you know, to be a sustainable source of income, etc. What do you believe the issues for candidates should be?
But the issue for candidates is a number of things. Candidates in this nation need to begin to think about the future. We need to start talking about the future. Why? In this particular election, how many young people are voting for the first time? This is the question that we've got to ask ourselves. And these young people are facing a future where they've got 30, 40, 50 years of work, and they don't know what's going to happen in future. So the question that we need to answer for Uasin Gishu is, number one, it is known as the state, as the county that produces champions. What are you doing to promote sport tourism? How are you building it to become a brand for this county? How are you building it to become agriculturally stable a county? How are you making sure that the resources within this county, it's also a transitional county in the sense that if you have to connect from Malaba to Mombasa, you most likely have to pass through it. How are you taking advantage of these opportunities in immediate, mid-term and long-term approach? The third thing that is very key is the good candidate here has a unique opportunity. He has a unique opportunity of reaching out not only to the other communities that are there, but because of his age and his youth, he can begin to drive the conversation of a progressive governor for this county, a governor who embraces the future. And that really, whenever you give people hope, then you can begin to dilute the question of tribe and ethnicity, because once there is hope, then we are united. Once hope is removed from any scenario, you can imagine if children have stayed hungry for a long time and you put a plate of food in that room, they'll definitely fight for it. So the question is, are you going to provide food consistently to these young people so that the notion of tribe does not exist? Because in Kenya it only exists because when we think of our time to eat.
All right. Dunstan, expecting the president and his deputy to be campaigning there this week. Do you think they have serious challenges in terms of consolidating the Jubilee vote there? And does NASA, which has had a lot to say about infiltrating the Rift Valley, have any votes to gather in this area?
What is likely to happen is that the president and the deputy might not land in Uasin Gishu if this type of talk continues for some time, because the battle lines have been drawn. Bichachi is appealing to the Nandis. The majority of his support is based on one issue. The Mandago is threatening. He is using the deputy president to whip emotions so that he is a man under siege, which might not be the truth. he might have lost contact with the people. When you see a governor threatening non-Kalenjins, especially non-Nandis, that's very scary. My people, the Kisi people are there, the Kikuyus are there, the Luos are there. Who are they going for, Governor? Do you have a policy in terms of resettling the people who were displaced in 2007? Has anybody addressed that question? There are people who bought property, there are people who have never gone back to their lands. How do you talk cosmetically on the top that you want unity when you have not resettled the people who bought land and they have title deeds? I'm a lawyer. The sanctity of a title deed is not questionable. Lastly, the issue that the president is likely to face is one, is governor aspirant Buseki going to step down the way Kinuthia Mbugua stepped down in Nakuru so that we have one, either Mandago? Is Governor Mandago twisting Jubilee, the deputy president and the president, so that they tell this guy, this friend of mine, that you step down for the peace of this area? So those are the questions that I was asking my good friend here, that how do they need and what policies do they put in place to ensure that the cradle of Jubilee is either in Ishaweri, in Gatundu, or Sugoi in Eldoret? What picture do the nation look at? Tuko pamoja, mko pamoja, na mnaanza kuambia watu jipange. That's the question.
Let's hear from Bichachi. Do you see yourself as a problem for Jubilee? I mean, this is the party that you initially wanted to vie on, and did anybody prevail on you to step down in favor of the incumbent?
You know, as the situation would have it, I think if there was anything strategic that happened in Uasin Gishu by default, is for me to be a candidate as an independent candidate and having another candidate being in Jubilee, because basically what this is going to do is that it's going to excite the ground, the campaign so much that a lot of people are going to come out in huge numbers to come and vote for me and also vote for my opponent. In the process, the biggest and ultimate beneficiary will be
the president. Okay.
So that is obvious, you know, and if you would want to look at it in contra, then what would mean if Buseki was not a candidate? He would have just said, okay, fine, I had 86,000 votes and I say, okay, fine. Then what would have happened? The supporters of my opponent would not have even come to vote because they would be in a celebration mood.
So it's good that you're in the race. So it's good
I'm in the race. Now, let me also answer this. Whether I'm going to decide to take a picnic and say that, you know, I'm out of the race, I can assure you, my desire to want to provide alternative, transformative leadership for the people of Uasin Gishu is a very deep-rooted conviction that cannot be swayed, cannot be changed, cannot be negotiated, because the patriotism that is in me and the love for my motherland, being Kenya and, you know, Uasin Gishu as my cultural home, I have a burning desire to want to bring change that will be an example.
You're going nowhere.
Two things I want to bring very clear here. As we start now, nobody is displaced from their farms. True, people have gone back to their farms. Those who did not go back to their farms have willingly sold their farms, and those ones who still have their farms and don't live there are leasing their farms to the people who want to farm.
So
for now, I am telling them that. Kenyans are telling them that. Uasin Gishu, nobody is out of his farm unless he has willingly sold it.
I think.
Number two, now that we are going for elections, we have nothing to lose between Mandago and Buseki. Buseki is a local, Mandago is a local. Whoever wins the vote, he will be our governor. The only thing that we don't want to have, and it is very unfortunate that it is coming out, is whipping the tribal issue. That is something that should be under the carpet. Nothing, it cannot even work. That is very clear.
I think the former mayor is giving us what the Trump administration calls alternative facts. The fact of the matter, I think it was just last year, there were people demonstrating outside Parliament saying that they have not been resettled. And we know the bulk of them came from the rift. So it will not be fair for the people who are watching and were displaced to hear us sitting here on national TV not crying out for their cause. I think it's grossly unfair. And also, if someone has been forced to lease out their land and it's something they didn't wish to do, they're still displaced. You understand? They are not in a place of comfort. That's number one. Number two, we need to come to a point, as my good friend has said, where we need to appreciate that this election is going to come down to the wire to voter turnout. Okay? And Jubilee has one issue that it has to overcome. Number one, if you hear their strongholds complaining, saying that the price of unga is too high, they can't find unga today and stuff like that, then you're going to have voter apathy. They may not vote for NASA necessarily, but they need to remember they only won by 700,000 votes. So 700,000 votes not showing up to vote for them is an issue. So this is a critical election. So what do they need to do? They need to have as many people show up to vote, and if you're having alternative candidates is how they're going to show up to vote, then good for them.
All right. Bichachi, as we wind up, and I'll come round for final comments, you have been labeled the Deputy President's project in Uasin Gishu, and that is a tag that you're struggling, some would say, to shake off, to the extent that, you know, even when we talk about your war chest, they say, how is this man able to afford the very kind of, you know, flamboyant campaigns that we've seen? Somebody has to be backing him. How do you dissuade your voters from the fact that you're somebody's project in the region?
I think, let me put it this way, and it's very unfortunate because Jackson Mandago is not here today, because that question should have been directed at him, because he's the one who orchestrated that propaganda that Bichachi happens to be a project of the Deputy President. And I'll tell you for a fact that the enormity of the task that involves being a governor is so enormous that I would imagine you would not do it on behalf of somebody else, first and foremost, leave alone you being a decoy or a proxy to somebody else. I'll also put it this way. I have never been somebody's project. I never even consulted the Deputy President the day I decided to contest to be a governor in Uasin Gishu, and this is on record. Anybody can ask him. I never consulted him, not even an SMS did I even write to him to tell him I want to contest as a governor.
But has he funded you in any way?
No, he's never funded me. If anything, what I can ask him is to just vote for me on 8th of August. You know, I would solicit for his votes in public television and say, hey, I think I have a serious agenda, and I know he's somebody who believes in an issue-based politics, and for that reason I would solicit for his votes. So, the person who says that I'm a project to somebody is just somebody who is trying to get a scapegoat. You know, some people will never stand on their own. You want to always point a finger at somebody. So I'm nobody's project. I'll never be, and I'll not be. On the issue of resources, you know what happens when you are a CEO like me, or somebody who pioneered an institution from nothing to a business that has become a brand. I know how to manage resources. With very little resources, well managed, you can think we have so much, and this would mesmerize some people who are very poor managers.
How much have you spent on your campaign so far?
Not a lot. You'll be surprised. Not a lot.
Give me a figure.
But a figure, 30 million shillings.
How much more do you intend to spend before we get to the elections?
For now, I'm not even going to spend anything, because
come now.
No, because I'm just telling you that
you've got helicopters with your name brand on it. Are they going to remain?
Do you know the kind of people I've attracted to be my supporters just by virtue of a very rich manifesto that I have? I have guys coming left, right, and center saying, hey, you are the guy, and we are going to give you anything that rocks.
Is it?
Yes, indeed.
Let me come for a final round of comments. I'll start with you, Josiah, and very much so, given the cosmopolitan nature of the county, your hopes going into the election.
My hope is that campaigns, electioneering period, be carried peacefully. Let us try to sell our values to the electorate. Let us sell our development ideas, how you will engage the people of Uasin Gishu, how everybody will live in peace and do business in Uasin Gishu as we go forward. What we need to engage ourselves on is not about where you originally came from or where you live or what business you do. We want all the people of Uasin Gishu to join hands together. We know at the background that Jubilee's stronghold is in our place, Uasin Gishu. We know that our leaders in the presidency is Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. Anybody else just convince us as the electorate to vote for you for your position without tampering with the issues of the top leadership of Kenya. We know and we are committed to voting for Uhuru Kenyatta and William.
Sir, that can only be a personal view and nothing more than that. Mark.
Mine is to just speak about the ethnicity question in this particular election, and I'd like to just borrow a leaf from the Bible. There are two stories. There is the woman who was accused of adultery, and Jesus said, "He without sin cast the first stone," and she was let go. But there are this group of people who were called money changers at the temple, and what they did is basically, if you came and you didn't have any money, you couldn't get into the temple because at least you had to have a sacrifice of a dove. Now, a dove was supposed to be free. Now, here's the thing. Any person who's taking advantage of the poor and playing around with their access to opportunities, their access to wealth, their access to peace, then we should do what Jesus did. We should form a nice whip using the IEBC and other legal entities and whip these people out of town. That's what we need to do. We need to overturn their tables. We need to throw them out of this political race and stand as a nation and say we will stand by peace. Why? Because these issues are started by words. Words have consequences. So let's be careful with what we say.
Danson.
My last parting shot is that I do not agree with Mark totally that there is nobody who has not been resettled. My president and my deputy president are going to my counties of Kisii and Nyamira tomorrow. That will be the same question they'll be asked. Numbers of IDPs that have never been resettled nor compensated. I would want that discussion started by Governor Mandago and Governor candidate Buseki to the question of how do they see those Kikuyus, those Luos, those Merus, those Kambas, those Makondes. Now we have another Makonde who is staying in Eldoret. How do they get not being seen as voters, but being seen as part and parcel of Eldoret? They cannot be counted as voters. They should be counted as people who have equal rights to own property, to settle, to marry, to engage, to socialize. It is very, very unfair at this time of the 21st century when we are talking that there is tribal and ethnic tension building up in Eldoret. Buseki and Mandago, and I'm sure Mandago is watching now, they should be discussing that question, and that is to me the agenda I give them. My parting shot to them is that Eldoret is a town in Kenya. It belongs to every Kenyan. It belongs to every Kenyan. It belongs to every Kenyan, and Uasin Gishu is our county. It's one of the counties that is very critical for this nation. Let the leadership of Uasin Gishu take care of that county for posterity, not for them. Let them not be so selfish and see that it is either Mandago or it is either Buseki. This country and that county is a serious arm of this nation that everybody wants.
And I thank you all for your views. Again, we invited the incumbent to the program. He had accepted, but later did not come. And now we take a short break. We're back with the sport after.